Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Deputy. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, the fact of the matter is Bill owes Jerry a favor, and now Jerry's actually calling this in to collect. Apparently, he wants Bill to look into like some robberies that's kind of happened. Was it in like basically a richer neighborhood, and Bill's kind of like, all right, I'll take the case. But it turns into a situation of like, it's like, okay, so now it seems like Jerry's only taking his case because a lot of their funding comes from this particular neighborhood, so like richer folk and stuff like that. So it's like, now it seems like that's the only reason why Jerry's actually looking into this case. And now obviously, you know, for Bill, it's like, normally he, you know, it's like he wouldn't get too caught up in that, but he owes Jerry a favor, and so the fact of the matter is he's going to, you know, ultimately see this case through. So with that whole situation, obviously he gets Cade to look into this, and Cade has Bishop's help. Obviously Bishop kind of handing, you know, more into the tech side of things. Basically, there's been a whole bunch of home robberies. More often than not, the people haven't been home, except in this third case, the lady of the house, she was still, like, she was home, because they never really discussed it, but I'm assuming it's like typically she's not home at this time, so it seems like the robbers know like people's schedules, they kind of spy on them and stuff like that. But Bishop kind of looks a little deeper into this, especially because she ends up kind of, you know, because she ended up hearing a recording and ends up hearing this whole situation of like, because we saw at the time the killers are, not the killers, the robbers were taking pictures, and it's like, I was like, okay, so you're those type of people who looking for, you know, like want to show off and stuff like that. And Bishop looks into it and finds out that obviously they've done this with their entire crimes, but it also seems like they're actually competing with another group of people doing that. So it's like, okay, so these are people kind of like, oh, look what we can do. Because obviously they looked into it and they're trying to see like, okay, so are these people pawning this? But it's like, no, the thieves aren't pawning this stuff, because it turns out it's like, oh wait, why would, like, how would they, you know, when to kind of strike and stuff like that, unless they lived in these particular neighborhoods, because they had actually blocked it off. So it's like, how did they get inside of these neighborhoods? Because if they were already there. So it turns out like the people involved are rich people. In particular, like the most recent robbery ended with someone getting shot, because in the third robbery they ended up stealing a gun from the house, and so they ended up using it because the dude in particular, I think his name is Shane, he came down the stairs with his mask up. The lady saw him and was like, I'm gonna call your mom. And it's like, she saw my face, so he shot her. And he's like, dude, we're not supposed to hurt anyone. And that was the whole point that Bill was talking about. The fact is that these guys are so brazen. The fact of the matter is they're stealing stuff, but also they're posting it. Because it's interesting, because Bishop had looked into it, and it turns out like, obviously, like, it's not just here, but there's like 11 teams or whatever that Bishop came across. So it's like, oh yeah, like it makes it seem like they're kind of a coordinated thing to a certain extent. So it doesn't seem like it isn't just like, oh, these two groups back and forth trying to outshine each other, that there is a little more complexity to it. There is a more grandiose element to this to a certain extent. But obviously Jerry, the moment it gets figured out who the identities are, it's like, yeah, these particular, you know, you made this whole point of like, oh yeah, like these rich folk, like you're making it so that they you wanted us to look into this neighborhood, but the fact of the matter is, oh, look, lo and behold, it's people from that neighborhood that are robbing. They're kids from these rich families that basically want to kind of show off and stuff like that. It's not like they come from wealthy enough families they can get whatever they want, but they like the thrill and being able to show off and like, oh, look how cool, how gangsta I am. Like, not necessarily the lane that they actually go down, but you know what that is. It's just like, yeah, we're so sick, we're so cool type of situation. It's obviously the negative side of social media, essentially, because this doesn't just apply to the show. Obviously it happens in real life. People do like terrible stuff because they want the recognition. That's why a lot of sometimes people have a tendency of like, oh, when there's like a terrible incident, but people don't want to show certain people's faces or even mention their names, because it means giving them recognition, and that's what this is all about. And Jerry was like, oh, but one of these kids, oh, what if something else is behind this? And you had Bill being like, wait, what? And Jerry's like, no. The fact of the matter is, I'm not saying this particular kid shouldn't get arrested, but maybe he's being influenced or something like that. And Jerry, he's like, Jerry, you got to get basically almost telling Jerry to get his head out of his own ass, just because it's like, the fact of the matter is, no matter where someone comes from, like rich or poor, like it shouldn't matter just because these people are more well off that they should be treated differently. Because if we're just going to like bend the rules for them, then what the hell is the point of the law in the first place? And we're going to bend it for the people just because some people are more well off than others. It's almost saying like, oh, because you're a little less well off, the law shouldn't work for you, that you should be protected. I mean, that's a complicated. I mean, obviously within the confines of the show, that's kind of it's like, oh, like, obviously that's an issue kind of just in the, because obviously cops might show up to a poor neighborhood much slower than they would a richer neighborhood. That could be like an argument. And so it kind of applies in this case. And I'm like, come on, Jerry. You really thought you saying that shit was going to be okay? Once again, it's like I'm putting words in his mouth to a certain extent, but just the way he's going, like, no, let's give him a second chance. Because Bill literally says, like, if this kid was from a different neighborhood, from a poorer neighborhood, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. You wouldn't be all like, oh, let's give him a second chance. Yeah, people deserve a second chance, but it's almost like you're only giving him a second chance because it's like, because of the life, his whole life ahead of him. We can't let this ruin it. It's like, you accept the consequences. Like, these kids have done it. I mean, hell, they shot someone, so there has to be ramifications. There has to be a price to pay for that. They have to suffer the consequences of it. So because even like the other kid who, was like, why'd you do that? Because the cops end up showing up at their house and everything. And it was like, dude, why'd you even do that? And he was just like, because she saw my face. And he's like, I don't want to do with this anymore. The dude with the gun is just like, no, you're going to stay here. Granted, it looks like he kind of snuck out. But he ran just because he didn't want to get involved in all this, because it is the thing, like, it was all fun and games until shit got serious. And that was the whole point. Like, because they are what they are, because it turns into a self-preservation, he had his gun. He was literally going to shoot Charlie if he had the opportunity. It's like, you're making things worse for yourself, kid. But for him, it's like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get away. And he even said it himself. It's like, my dad's going to got us covered. And the kid was like, wait, what? It's like, because my dad's such a powerful lawyer, he's going to get us off. And it's like that, you're not even willing to take responsibility for your actions. It's like, okay, daddy's going to get me out of this type of situation, showing you kind of where their mindset is. At least one of them. The other one still kind of had that mindset of like, getting away with stuff. But it's just like, once things kind of crossed the line of like, we're shooting people, we're hurting people, that's where it crossed the line for him. So the other one kind of bailed out on it. But it's interesting. Because obviously this ties into like everything with Joseph and Charlie. Like, it seems like, Charlie's like pushing Joseph, obviously doing like drills and stuff like that, but like the training thing, he ends up messing up. He ends up killing not only the suspect, but also an innocent person. And she's kind of basically pushing him, saying like, if you're not careful, this could be a life or death situation. And it could have been because Joseph had her back, because he was more quick on the draw. Because he was more focused, he ended up seeing the kid and ended up taking Shane down. Luckily, he didn't kill him, but luckily he was able to save Charlie's life, because of it. Things could have been bad, and so. And obviously Bill kind of made it, clear that basically, like, at the very end when he's talking in front of the cameras, he's basically like, we have to, parents need to kind of basically teach your kids values, because it's like, these are kids who had everything, who came from wealthy families. Yet there was kind of some hole inside of them that they needed to fill, so they ended up doing this type of stuff. So it's like, as parents, we kind of have to step up and kind of basically instill our kids with morals of just let them know like what's right and wrong. Just because you come from a rich family doesn't mean, kind of to basically, that thing of understanding what the value of a dollar is. That, it's just like, not get so caught up in just like your privilege and, thinking that you can kind of get away with anything, that your parents are always going to be there to solve any problem for you. It's that type of situation. So, because another element to this whole thing is obviously Bill ends up meeting with councilwoman and the mayor. And basically the mayor was even like, oh, no. It's like, oh, because Bill was like, oh, so I heard you were taking things in a different direction, when it comes to like the sheriff position and stuff like that. And they're like, oh, wait, where'd you hear that from? And he was like, the mayor was like, no, let's just cut to the chase. The fact of the matter is, we know where he heard it from. Bradford wasn't even in the ground yet before Jerry came to us asking for our support, but they didn't give it to him, because in particular the mayor actually wants to back Bill, because he's like, Bill Bill's like, whoa, who says I'm even running? But the fact is, he's like, you're a man of the people. You're going to look out for the people's best interest. Complicated thing. This episode kind of shows you that Jerry kind of looks at things from a different perspective because he wanted to kind of help out the richer families, this richer neighborhood, because they were threatening to kind of pull out their funding. And the fact of the matter is, the mayor and the councilwoman had Bill sit down and kind of talk to this particular group, and they were like, oh, what are you going to do about this? You haven't done anything to catch them yet. The fact of the matter is, what do you think? I looked at the taxes. What are we paying you for? And Bill was like, I get it. Like, the fact of the matter is, thank you, because she was like part of the neighborhood watch or whatever. It's like, thank you for your service. And he was like, what we're doing this and that. But the fact is, well, no, obviously he says it more tactfully, but he's basically like, hey, don't get it twisted. I think you might be thinking just that we work for you. It's like, no, we're looking out for everyone. And that basically, the fact of the matter is, no matter what neighborhood or what income bracket you work for, we're looking out for everyone's best interest. And that basically, it's like, we should kind of work together going forward, because I think that he was like, yeah, the richer neighborhoods kind of thing got it twisted that we kind of work specifically for you. And that is not the case, and kind of setting the record straight, kind of. But, everyone kind of applauds him. Even the mayor's like, look at all that support. The fact of the matter is, if you do decide to run, you've got my support, which Bill's like, hey, okay. And even later on, he brings it up to Jerry. It's like, oh, yeah, I had to sit down with them. They actually had no plans of actually pulling their money or support. Actually, they just said that so they could keep you in check, Jerry. So kind of showing just because Jerry kind of showing that Jerry is willing to bend just because he thought like, oh, their funding was going to be taken away in certain regards. But now they're also backing Bill's support. And it's like, oh, so now you're running. He's like, well, leaving all options open, Jerry, just kind of walks by tapping him on the shoulder. So it's like, obviously Jerry doesn't, obviously like Charlie ends up digging up something on Bill. We don't know what it is, but gives it to Jerry. But even Bill, Charlie's like, I don't get why you want this, Jerry. Like, it's not like Bill's even, he said he's not even running, right? It's like, well, it's an insurance policy, which that should, right there should be kind of a sign. Like, that's so interesting because even Charlie was talking about the fact of the matter is, getting in this assignment and stuff like that was because it's, election time and stuff like that. And Joseph was like, what? And she's like, never mind. I'm like, so I don't get why you're still backing Jerry, but I guess because she doesn't get to see those sides of Jerry that Bill does. But the fact of the matter is, Bill hasn't come to you to do some shady stuff like that. But for her, it's like, well, Bill might cross the line and do some gray area stuff. But, for her, what she had said previously, like, oh, she believes in structure because the institution has been laid out of like this, and this, and the rules and stuff like that. And Bill's kind of threatening that to a certain extent. It's like, it's cool, he's shaking things up, but we need consistency and we need continuity. So it's like, I don't know. But the moment she was leaving, you could tell it almost seemed like Charlie felt bad. She was just like, what did I do? Like, I thought I was doing the right thing. But now it's just kind of like she feels scummy about it, I think. Especially knowing that like who she's screwing over is Joseph's godfather. So it's like she knows that's not going to sit well with him potentially if that ever comes out. I mean, granted, it's about events in your own career, but at the same time, it's like, is it kind of worth it if you're kind of going about it like shady? Like, yeah, you might deserve it and stuff like that, but it's like, well, the system kind of doesn't let you kind of rise up the ranks like you're supposed to. Like, you deserve to kind of go higher. You feel like you put in the work to do it, but things haven't worked out. So it's like you're kind of owed. At the same time, it's like, it's that whole thing of like, owed versus what you deserve type of situation of like, she feels like she deserves the job and like she has worked hard for it, but at the same time it's like, are you really earning it if you're going about it you're playing a very political game in its own right by kind of gaming the system by working with Jerry. So that turns into a whole like complicated mess in itself. So another interesting angle to this episode was the whole situation with Paula's mom stopping by, because obviously she's helping out with the quinceañera and everything. And I love that whole thing of like she's asking Paula, but Paula's like, no, nothing's wrong, I'm fine. And like, Paula's mom asks Maggie, it's like, oh, do you lie to your mom? And Maggie's like, I plead the fifth. And Paula's like, oh, wait, what are you lying to me about? And Maggie ends up changing the subject. But obviously her mom's worried about her, and you can tell later on she kind of pushes more and more. It's like, oh, so that's why you came here, Mom, to check up on you. And she's like, of course, I want to check up on all of you. And, end up learning, obviously, like, she's the one that ended up finding out that Maggie has a boyfriend named Wyatt. She's the one that figured it out, not, Paula or Bill, which even, because even Paula was like, whoa, I didn't know about that. How'd you figure that out, Ma? But basically, Paula hasn't been sleeping well, and it's like, oh, what kind of nightmares are you having? And she's like, I'm not having nightmares. I never said anything like that. She's like, you can lie to everyone. You can lie to your friends. Hell, you can even lie to Bill. But don't lie to me. I'm the woman who gave birth to you, so I know something's wrong. And so it's a situation of like, am I worried about like Bill's job and then whether he's coming home, or obviously, what she went through and everything. For her, she has to be strong. She feels like she has to be strong for Bill and for Maggie. And she feels like, but how can I be strong for them when I can't even be strong for myself? But, but the fact is for her mom, it's like the fact is you're even admitting that, like saying that you're not okay is the first step. And that's a big step in its own, because like even just admitting to yourself that you're not okay, it takes a lot, so I thought that was just kind of a nice moment, for Paula, I think, to kind of open up a little bit more, because we can see that obviously like it's been on her mind, and she definitely hasn't been telling Bill about it, because I think she already feels like Bill's got so much to worry about, she doesn't want to add more to it. Plus she wants to be stronger for Maggie, because Maggie's already worrying, so she didn't want to make Maggie worry more, so she's keeping up the stronger front. But it's okay to admit when you're not okay, like, because people, even when you're down, even when you're feeling weak, people can be there to help build you up and hold you up and, keep you strong, And that's the beauty of family, Another angle to this was that whole kind of circling back to the whole Charlie thing. Joseph's hanging out with home dude, and the whole question about, like, obviously because he's like, oh, things between him and that girl didn't work out. He's like, can you really see me with the whole family and kids thing? And Joseph, what about you? And Joseph's like, no, like, he's so busy, he has no time for ladies, no woman in his life. But then it's kind of like, he's like, yeah, there's someone I'm interested in. I'm like, is it Charlie? I was like, because he made that joke last episode, and even a part of me was wondering, is that why things were so awkward between them in this episode? I was wondering if it's like, oh, was it just her kind of like, maybe she kind of has a thing for Joseph too, like maybe it's kind of reciprocated, and it's kind of like her kind of overcompensating by kind of being harder on him. But at the same time, it's like, well, she's just TO, and so she is kind of helping him out and everything, so pushing him to make him a better, deputy and everything, so it makes sense. So it's it's probably just reading too much into. Maybe it's not even Charlie at all. I wonder, just because they hinted at that, because it could easily end up being someone else. I'm curious about that, but we're gonna have to ultimately wait and see on that. Another angle to this is obviously, Teresa and Cade, the baby, they're kind of happy. I mean, not kind of, they're ecstatic about the whole situation. They get a picture of the baby. And obviously for Teresa, she's scared, because obviously it's like, she doesn't want to get her hopes up, because like they've been down this route before and things just kind of haven't worked out. But it's like, no, things are going to be okay. Things are going to be good. But things kind of turn a little sideways at the end, because it turns out the kids have a grandmother. And it's like she wants to come visit him, so it might turn into a thing of like she might have more custody and say on this situation. I mean, I'm curious whose mother she is. She might be their dad's mom, so that might turn into a whole complicated thing of like, you killed my son type of thing. It's like the kids might have, the brother may have, Roberto might have forgiven him, and obviously Roberto and Camilla have definitely found their place there, but now it's like this is actually blood, so that might turn into a whole complicated thing, because obviously it's like this is it's like the kids just got settled in, and Teresa's kind of scared of like potentially them getting taken away. So I don't know, I'm curious to see where that goes. Then there's another angle to this episode about Bishop, because obviously Bishop, is talking to Genevieve. Well, Genevieve and Bishop are kind of at odds at the beginning, and it's like, because for it's like, it's like I don't want to talk about it, because anytime we talk, it's an argument. But Bishop's like, I want to just talk about it, because for Genevieve, it's a thing of, I'm a lesbian, I like women, and it's like, now you're kind of just dropping this on me, which is kind of effed up, because it's like, Bishop said it, it's like, I'm in the process of figuring this out myself, and so it leads to this whole complicated thing of Genevieve needs time to figure things out, which immediately, the moment it happened, I was like, what did Paula tell her? Well, tell Bishop. I'm sorry, because I did mess up earlier, and I'm making, because obviously Bishop makes a decision later on, and it's like, I'm not a he, I'm not a she, I'm a they, going down the non-binary route. And for Bishop, it's a thing of like, because even Cade was like, you literally moved here for this girl, right? And it's like, yeah, then don't just try, push and make an effort. And Bishop did. Bishop could have just let things be when Genevieve was kind of like, oh, like, we got to do things. Things don't always have to be on your term. And it's like, whoa. I think that's a little shitty of you. Like, but even Bishop was like, well, yeah, that's why I'm trying to make it on our terms. Like, Bishop had the conversation with you because, I think it's that complicated thing of like, the whole thing is, very how you feel, and because no one else can really tell you clear cut like how you're supposed to feel. Only person that can explain that is you, and obviously Bishop's trying to figure that out. And it's just I can understand where Genevieve comes from, where it's complicated, because you're like, oh, I fell in love with you for this reason, but at the same time it's like, it's not so, maybe in the past things were very black and white, but it's like, no, there's shades of gray when it comes to when it comes to gender, when it comes to sexuality, and it's just, I can, like I said, I can understand why it's like, it's different. So it's like, for you, it's like, well, what does that mean for me? Because like, once again, Genevieve's like, I like women, but it's like, but for Bishop, it's like, I'm still the same person you fell in love with. What my situation is shouldn't change that, And it's because it's an interesting thing where it's like, it seems like Bishop is finding Bishop stuff in the whole like gray area of it all, of gender and sexuality. But it seems like Genevieve is so kind of caught in the black and white of it that you're not even willing to go into that area of gray, not even try. Like that's what it almost seems like. It's like Genevieve sadly isn't trying, and it's like, and for Bishop, it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, the fact of the matter is, I wanted your support. It doesn't mean I need your support. That was kind of the whole point that even Paula had said, like, if Genevieve isn't by your side, it doesn't accept you as you are, then you just, then you find someone who is, and sadly that's how things kind of end up playing out. And it's upsetting because it's like, you're in a process of figuring this out and you don't want to go through it alone. You're hoping that this person that you're in love with would accept you, and it seems like Genevieve doesn't. I thought it was kind of neat that one person that Bishop ends up calling is the sheriff. I guess because the sheriff's the only other person that Bishop's close to like that. Bishop got pretty close to Paula as well, but it's like, well, I'm kind of pissed, and you just needed someone to talk to, and kind of explains to sheriff, because it's like, yeah, for her, it's like, for Bishop, it's like someone just wrote down F, and it's like, I'm just a female, and it's like, he's like, aren't you? And she's like, no, I'm not female, I'm not a male, I'm just non-binary, and even sheriff being like, I'm gonna mess up, because even I've messed up, because I'm just not used to saying they. That's why I just keep trying to say Bishop, but just because I do apologize. It's just flowing out of my mouth as she. Like, it's just like, it's not like I'm not used to calling someone a they, like, as representing like their pronoun. For me, just like, that's why I keep saying Bishop, but it's just like, within the context of the sentence, saying Bishop over and over again, it's that weird thing when you say something over and over again, it kind of loses its meaning. So that's why it's kind of hard for me to kind of adjust to that, but it's like, I'm just going to refer to Bishop as Bishop and try not to make that mistake, because even Bill had said like, hey, it's a learning process. Like, even if you like mess up, I kind of figured this is the lane that Bishop was going down, but I was like, but at the time I was like, I didn't know whether they would have been the appropriate thing to say, and it turns out they is. But obviously, for Bill, it's like, as long as you're being true to who you are, nothing else matters, because living your truth is all we have, So I thought that was kind of, it was pretty nice. And I think for Bishop, it is nice to see, Bill accepting them, as the way they are, and I think that's just a beautiful element to it, It's like, even going towards, so what do I call you from now on? It's like Bishop, and it's like, okay, then Bishop it is, So, nothing has to change, So I thought that was kind of a neat element to that, So I'm curious to kind of see ultimately where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, love life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good